Welcome to Love You Longmont. I'm Linda Bond. One of the things I've been most impressed with in Longmont is the Hour Center, which serves 18,000 households a year. Empty Bowls is a special project as a fundraiser for the Hour Center. Today we're going to learn some of the techniques that people use to create bowls that look like they were made by professional artists. Tamar Hendricks owns Crackpots, and she's going to show us some of the things that people can do, or you can do if you go to Crackpots, to create great looking bowls. This is Tamar Hendricks, and she's the owner of Crackpots in downtown Longmont. And I'm very excited about you being involved with empty bowls. But you know, I imagine a lot of people think they could never make a beautiful bowl like this. And in fact, I thought the same thing myself. I am so excited to find out there are all sorts of techniques you can use that you can make these bowls look great so that people will want them once they get to the Empty Bowls event. Now, tell us about tell me first, how long have you owned this business?
So we've been in business since 2001, so we're going on our 18th year.
Oh my goodness.
We were right next door for the first 10 years, and then we moved over into this space, and then we've been here about 7 years.
So were you an artist yourself?
No, I had a marketing career, and when we moved to Longmont, we felt like Longmont needed something fun for families, and so this had always been a hobby of mine, so I decided to turn my hobby into my life.
How exciting.
Yeah.
This is a really big place. How many people can you handle at once?
I don't know an exact number, but we can handle quite a few. We can handle over 100 at a time.
Really?
Yeah.
What, you have different rooms and different things?
Yeah, we have 2 party rooms and a large studio. We moved into this space specifically so that people could have a lot of elbow room and a lot of feel like an open space for creating.
There are so many wonderful and exciting techniques that I really do believe will make people look like they're professional artists.
That's what we do.
And you're going to demonstrate some of them to us today.
Sure.
Well, tell us about this one first.
So this is one of the easiest techniques you can do, and we hear that all the time. We always hear, I mean, most kids will dive in and jump right into being creative, but adults always have to qualify and make sure we're not judging them. And that's just what we hear all day long. And quite frankly, we don't believe it because really once you're around it and you see how easy techniques can be to make something as beautiful as this, and these are real empty bowls that were created by customers. I just randomly picked them out of the mix just to show certain techniques. So this is just, we call it a masking off technique. In the studio we have all kinds of tape, masking tape in various widths, and then we also have masking dots, and sometimes we have shapes as well. But all you do, it's kind of a first step is deciding your design, and you can see this is a really random design. You can be more, make stripes or whatever you want, but you just, it goes directly onto the dry pottery.
You don't have to put a coat of paint on it first.
No, actually the tape doesn't stick unless it's dry. So this is definitely something you want to do right away. And I'm just going to do a straight line, and I'll show you with a dot as well.
Okay.
Just to show you. So you just make sure it's stuck down. You get some paint.
Oh, and I love these little palettes. They're so cute.
Yeah, we've had those. Some of these have been around since we first opened.
Oh, really?
That's our little logo, and yeah, they're fun. Here, I'll put one of these on here as well.
Okay.
And with this technique, once the dots are down, you can either just use a sponge, and you can dab the sponge into the paint, and you just go directly on top of the tape. And of course you could create a better design than I did, but you can just dab it all over. If you prefer, you can use a paintbrush. No matter what you do is fine. And you can just slop it on there because the tape is what's going to make it look perfect in the end.
But now one thing I do understand is when you look at these paints, that's not the color it's going to be, and you'll show us after a while how to tell the color. Right. So
we have tiles by our paint station where you get your colors to show you what the colors are going to look like after they're fired. when you're painting, it's going to look like sidewalk chalk. It doesn't look bright and shiny until after it's fired. And that's kind of the magic of it. And that's, I think, why sometimes first-timers have a hard time with it, because it doesn't look exactly the way it's going to be afterwards. But once you see it after it's fired, then you feel like you can do it.
But you have to put several coats on.
You don't have to. This one was probably just one coat. One coat's going to be more like a watercolor. 2 coats is a little darker, and then 3 coats is solid. And I personally don't have the patience for 3 coats a lot of the time, so I kind of like the more painterly look with brush strokes, because I always say that perfection is overrated. So I always try to make it look more handmade, and the more brush strokes, the better, in my view. So I just covered it really sloppy over the tape. And then once it's, you don't even have to wait till it's totally dry, but you pull the tape off.
Oh gosh, it looks good already.
And the magic of, and you pull the tape off, and you have a perfect little circle.
That's beautiful.
And you can just,
don't forget that little baby.
Yeah, we gotta get that little guy. We have little tools too if you don't have nails and you need to pull it up.
When it's fired, will it be white and glossy like this? Even though it looks so matte there.
Yeah, because that's our part. We dip every single piece into a clear glaze and cover it. Yeah, so every single piece that goes through the studio goes to our kiln room, and then we dip it in a clear glaze. And that's actually what makes it food safe and usable and all those good things.
And really, that makes a lot of sense, because I went to Empty Bowls last year, and I got a bowl that I love, and I use it every morning, and I use it in the microwave.
Yeah.
And I never even thought about the fact that if it wasn't glazed, it wouldn't be safe.
Well, there are ways to make it safe, but because most people who come here are not professional artists and don't know how to cover it thoroughly with 3 coats, then we just put that part on our responsibility to make sure it's covered with a clear glaze. Yeah. So, and then this doesn't have to be done. This could be turned into a planet or a smiley face, or, you know, but it just kind of helps you get started with a design. Or it could be the whole design in a case like this, where they spent a lot of time doing the tape, but probably not as much time with the color. Maybe though, I don't know.
Well, they did kind of do a graduated ombre.
Right, so they look like they worked hard on that one. It's beautiful.
It is.
So yeah.
That was a cool look at some masking techniques. Organizations like the Rotary Club have come in for months, and they've been painting bowls. And here are some of the other techniques that have been used.
Now, Tamar, you have several other styles, and I want to master them all.
Okay.
So just tell us about what you have here.
Okay, so this is, we have all kinds of stamps and stencils. I'm going to show you the stamping. These we call our designer stamps, but we have more of regular, what you would consider stamps that you might see anywhere. But these we love because we call them our designer stamps. We have this whole bin full of designs, and we call them designer stamps. They're a little more adult looking.
Yeah, these are not childlike. They're beautiful.
They're more textures and designs and everything. And they're really easy to use. I have a tile here that I'll show you.
All right.
All you want to do is, again, with the sponge, you dab it into the paint. Dab it into the paint.
Now, before you do, are you going to show us this one?
Yeah, I'm going to show you a fish
design. You must have painted
design.
the background color first.
Yes, so you can do, what I would suggest is starting with a light color of paint, and then do darker on top, just because with these paints, it's a little bit like markers. Once it's fired, the light colors, the dark color behind it might overpower them. It does show up, but it's a much more of a contrast if you pick a light color first and then do dark on top.
Right.
And I'm going to show you this fish stencil, or this fish stamp.
Okay.
And the trick with the stamp is to use a sponge. A lot of people think of stamping when you stamp with ink, and they want to, dab it into the paint, but then that fills all the crevices. So you dab your sponge into the paint, and even dab it off to the side, and you just pounce onto the stamp. Straight on. If you drag it, again, you're filling all the crevices rather than the just touching the top part of the stamp, which is the part that has the design. And you just dab it on, and then you carefully flip it over, and you press And when you lift it up, you have your design.
That is so cute.
And I always tell people to practice first. We have this paper on the tables everywhere. And I always tell people to practice first on the paper and just make sure they like the way it's turning out, because some people have a heavier hand and it takes a couple times to figure out how much paint, and if they're having trouble, we always tell them to come ask us. I also like to do, you can be very uniform with it and make it just stamp just like this, but this one just demonstrates where you can just get a little crazy and just stamp it all over the place, more haphazard, and just have fun with trying out different stamps. And they don't have to be perfect. It kind of gives it a rustic look if you just stamp away.
And as you said earlier, it makes it look more like an artist did it than a machine.
Right, yeah.
You don't want to have it look like it was mass produced. You're going to a lot of trouble.
Right, that's part of the charm, is just that it doesn't look like it was made or you picked it up at a store. It's like it's handmade.
Let's see the stencils now. Those look interesting.
Yeah, so stencils are really simple. Pencil marks in pottery will burn away and disappear. Oh, no. So you just have to draw lightly with the pencil. And just like any other stencil, you can just draw it right on. And once you have your design.
Paint through that though?
You can paint through it. Again, you would have to pounce like you did with the stamp. You can paint right through. I sometimes find that people tends to seep underneath. And, but you can get it right like that.
I see what you mean.
It seeps underneath a little bit.
Clear edge.
So I usually recommend using the pencil and then just taking a brush and filling it in. So that takes a little bit more time, but at least you have the shape that you want to do. And you would just fill it in. And if you wanted it to be a solid color, you would just do 3 coats. And we have different widths of brushes.
And of course you can't do that with the rolling it on, or whatever. What did you call these?
This designer stamps.
You can't do that with the stamps because you'd never hit the right spot.
Right, so that's just 1 coat, and that's why we just recommend the lighter background for the stamps, because since you only have 1 coat going on.
Right.
And again, it shows up just beautifully, as you can see. You don't need the 3 coats for it to show up.
Now this one is kind of splattered.
So yes. That one actually is using one of our speckle paints. So we do have paints that already have little speckles in them, and you can see that at our paint station. What I was going to demonstrate with this one, people love what we call our mosquitoes.
Mosquitoes?
Yes. I don't think anyone else would call them mosquitoes, but we do. They have this little needle nose on them, and it's the same paint that we used for anything in the studio, but they're in a nice little Rider bottle, and they have this tip so that they don't dry out. And sometimes you can do your entire design with them. They just come out kind of like a writing tool. You can either just make dots with them. And we've had people, I was trying to find a bowl, some people have done just spiral, beautiful designs with just dots, you know, rainbows of dots and just designs with dots. It's a great writing tool. I think I saw this one, somebody wrote inside.
Be still, how lovely.
Yeah, and so it's a good writing tool. Just empty bowls, I kind of have to do it upright, but you know, you can write with it. Just quickly.
I did see a sign on your wall that said, "Sign your pot, it makes it more valuable."
Yes, I mean, just like any artist, you never know what, we always encourage people to sign their pieces just because it has more value, not only to, like, in case you become famous someday, especially these kids, you don't know where or when, what life has in store for them, but also adults, you know, I always encourage the date also, because these are keepsakes. I know my kids have done things, and when you're in the moment, you don't realize that you're going to look back at them and be like, oh, they were only 2 years old when they did this, and you remember painting together, and you remember doing it, and as time goes by, you think you'll remember how old they were, but I always encourage people to put the date.
And another thing I found was so many of them last year, every bowl I liked had EB on it, and I thought that EB is some artist. And it was for empty bowls.
Yes, that's the way we sort things in the kiln room. So when we see things come out with empty bowls or EB, we know it goes to the empty bowls. And what I find is empty bowls is such an amazing event, and with all these people in the community painting bowls, it's been fun to watch as people choose their bowls, because with their ticket they get to take a bowl home with them. And when people sort through, they'll flip it over and they'll see a name and they'll be like, oh, I know her, she's my neighbor. Yeah. And that's part of why I think it's valuable to put your name, because it kind of makes it even a more community event, because a lot of times people will say, oh, I just took this bowl, they go to my church, or they're, you know, it kind of adds a little, it makes it a small town feel. Yeah. Right. You never know if your name is the next Picasso, you know.
Do you have any idea how many bowls are done for empty bowls every year?
There's about, we last year did about 800 bowls.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, we have a lot of involvement in the community. It's really great. But they're also donated by the schools, like in some of the clay classes at the high schools, the pottery classes, they throw bowls, and some of the elementary schools do it in their art classes as well.
That's so exciting.
So it's fun.
You have groups here all the time.
Yeah, we do.
That's really cool. Well, there are also a couple of different techniques that probably we don't have time to demonstrate, but maybe you could tell us about them.
Yeah. I have this technique, which we have taught in classes, but whenever people see this out in the studio, they always ask how to do it. This we use yarn for it. So it's another masking off technique, but we use yarn, and you put down color and then you lay it down and then you paint over it. So we can show you, if you come into the studio, any of these techniques. If anyone's wondering about, our staff is always explaining and happy to explain how any of these techniques work. Another masking technique that's really neat is the same idea, but with lace. And so you lay down a color and then you put the lace down, and then you get the texture coming out onto the bowl. And
you paint through that.
Yes, so
put the ink on the lace first.
No, it's actually you lay down on this one in particular. They laid down a light pink, and then they put the lace down. And we have different styles of lace in this little container, and we have different strips of it and things like that. And then they actually put the light pink over it and then the dark pink on top, and they're sponging or painting right on top of it. And so you have a big glob of painted fabric. It looks awful.
All right.
And you have to trust the process. And then when it's just almost dry, you peel it off, which is the fun reveal, and then you have this beautiful texture that's left behind.
Would you wash that off and use it again?
Yeah, we do.
You could?
Yeah.
Let me look at this a minute. So you don't want it to be perfect either. You want it to also have a feeling that it was just made special.
Sure, I think so, yeah.
And even a little bit inside.
Yeah, they even did a little extra heart in the inside. I think people are more critical of themselves when they're doing it, and they want it to be perfect, but then when they come out of the kiln, I always tell people, don't point out what they did wrong, because nobody else will notice. You kind of look at your own mistakes and you zoom in on them, but most people would look and never imagine what went wrong.
Well, that's good. That's really nice. Well, you know, I know that the one that you talked about, the masking with the yarn, Lonnie Dooley did that, and I wanted to thank Lonnie especially for introducing me to this, and for writing the newsletter that lets the whole community know what's going on downtown.
Yeah, definitely.
Events.
She's great.
She's got the little Colorado thing there. I bet that one will be a popular one.
Yes, the Colorado and all the local ones, yeah, they turn out great. And we do, the Our Center does pull. So they go through every single bowl that's painted, everybody's bowls, and pull out some for a silent auction at the event. And people are always really excited because it's not based on being a true artist. I mean, they are true artists, but they're not maybe professional. They don't know it until they see themselves, and it's really fun to see little kids sometimes are chosen. And it's really fun to see how excited that they were chosen in the silent auction. And so, yeah, there's about 100 bowls 80 to 100 bowls that get chosen for the auction.
I think one thing we should mention is even though you pick out a bowl, you go with your ticket, you get a free bowl, you don't take that bowl to get your food.
No, so there are paper bowls that you actually eat your soup in. Even though these are food safe, a lot of people are handling them that day, so that day they wouldn't be used. You get 2 bowls. You'll get a little bag with 2 bowls, spoons, and everything. And then there's about 20 stations of food, 18 to 20, with different restaurants local restaurants that donate different kinds of soup. So there's lots to choose from, and they're all really good. And yeah, so you're not actually eating out of this bowl that day, but you get bowls, lots of bowls.
Lots of bowls. And you could go to the silent auction, and in the silent auction you'd actually pay more to get them, right?
Right, yeah. You're bidding, and yeah.
Yeah, but you don't have to do that with your ticket. You might get one of the 800 bowls, and you get to pick them out.
Yes, and this is our 15th year. We helped when they first started this event, and over the years people come back and paint bowls, and we've just seen the quality of bowls. People are getting really good at this. So even in the general selection of bowls, there's some really beautiful ones. It's getting harder and harder for them to pick out just the best of the best for the auction, because everybody gets a great bowl.
Oh, that's so neat.
Yeah.
Is there anything you need to add that we haven't covered about this technique or things?
I don't think so. I think there's lots more techniques, and we're happy to show anybody them when they come into the studio. And
you do give a little tutorial to people as they come in.
Definitely. Everybody who comes in, if they haven't done this, or even if they have and need a refresher, we are happy to walk through how the paints work. We have all the tools set up in our tool station, and as they're going, if they have questions, we're always helping people along with their projects. So yeah. We're here to help, and we think everybody can be an artist, because the more we see of things that can be just simple stripes, it doesn't have to be a painted, perfect dog, just pretty colors.
And it's for a great cause.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. So I'll be looking forward to seeing all the different bowls that are going to be at Empty Bowls.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tamara.
Yeah.
We enjoyed it.
Thanks.
So you can see there are really a lot of different techniques that can be used to make these bowls look wonderful. Tamara's going to show us the difference between what paint looks like in the bottle and what it looks like once it's painted.
So these are all the paints that our customers can choose from. There's lots to choose from, and these little tiles show what the color is going to look like after it's fired. So in the bottle and when they're painting, it looks quite different. Some colors look different than much different than others. Like for instance, this looks kind of pink, but it will be a dark purple. So it changes quite a bit. So we always tell people to choose based on what they see on the tile. And then this little swoop of color shows what it looks like with just 1 coat of paint, and that shows 3 coats. So tile shows it a little bit more in larger format. This is all the same color purple. 1 coat of color is going to be more like a watercolor. 2 coats is a little darker, and then 3 coats is solid. And the best way to do that and get a good solid coverage is to let each coat dry in between. And it doesn't take long at all to dry. The first coat will soak right into the pottery because it's very porous, and the second coat and third coat as well. And then anywhere they don't paint is going to be white and shiny like this, because again, we put that clear glaze over the whole thing. This tile demonstrates that how it's better to use a light color first and put darker colors on top, because with a lighter color on top of a dark, sometimes the dark color shows through. And it really doesn't matter. 3 coats helps with that. It depends on your design. I always tell people it mostly matters if you have you're trying to make a snowman in a night sky. If you put the night sky behind him, he might end up looking like a ghost. But with flowers, you might like that look, so it doesn't matter too much. You just have to know that that's what's going to happen after it's fired. We also have glitter paints, which are new. We call them fairy dust. Everybody likes glitter. They are available as well. You just ask us. We keep them behind the desk. And they have a little bit of a shimmer to them, and they work just along with all the other colors.
So you can see there is really a lot of difference between the way paint looks before it's fired and after it's fired. Right now we're going to see another technique from Tamar.
So here's another technique. We have silk screens, which are kind of like stencils, but they're a little bit different. They have a screen in the design, and we have a whole binder full of all kinds of designs and textures that all different seasons and hobbies and techniques, and I'm going to show you, I'm going to demonstrate a flower. So with the silk screens, you get a little paint, and we have this special powder that you add to your paint, and I just use my finger to mix it up, and it's a thickening agent that makes the paint a little bit thicker and get it to a consistency kind of a brownie batter is what I always tell people, or peanut butter. And you can use a little stick too. I don't mind getting messy. It's kind of fun. So you mix it up so it's got a little bit of thickness to it. And then you lay your silk screen down where you want it. Mix this up. And you scoop it up, and you just press it right onto the design. I'm going to gather some more. You just start pressing it through the screen, and you kind of just make sure it pushes through. And you can do parts of it or the whole thing. I'm just going to go ahead and do the whole thing. And make sure it presses through. And when you lift it up, you have the design.
Now you've gotten to see a lot of the great techniques that have been used at Crackpots for the benefit called Empty Bowls. That's Saturday, March 17th at Longmont High School. The doors open at 10:30 and close at 1:30. It's a great event for an even better cause. See you next time on Love You Longmont.